to this session, how to learn D365 and the Power Platform from start. My name is Smith, and it's an absolute pleasure to kick off this year's Scottish, although in obviously stances, absolute pleasure to you all. So we'll kick things off by saying a big thank you to our sponsor event, because these things can't happen air. So we've got ScriptRunner, Global, obviously Proximo, Hitachi Solution, Elysis, and Redspire. I'm going to start by an introduction to myself, because there's a big reason behind why I'm speaking towards today, and that is because I've been around in the space for I'm a Power Platform and 365 CE consultant, but that's been spending most of my life doing. And pretty much the entirety of my singing as a professional opera singer, and then to sort of hang up my singing, went into a recruitment consultant. Originally in sort of normal contract recruit, and then taking my way into D365 and the form. And for me, this is really where I started. In December of 2019, I took my first exam, was the MB900, so the Dynamics Fundamentals, and I completely caught the bug. What had originally started as being a way for me to be able to relate to candidates more, be able to understand a little bit more businesses, why they need some certain attributes. And I kind of started thinking, oh, this is quite cool. Okay, so I can stand up this database in about 5 minutes. I can draw together an entity structure and get some cool dashboards. I've got complete control over a UI. And as I said, I don't have a really strong technical background. And the reason that this session is called From a Standing Start is that from taking the MB900 in December of 2019, I think it was then in August or September of the following year that I took my MB600, the Solution Architect exam. Now, I'm by no means saying to you all that I'm a solution architect or anywhere near that. But what I do want to talk to you about today is how, wherever you're at in your learning journey, and actually however much time you can commit to this, there are certain ways which you can really delve into this platform and get a lot out of it very, very quickly. And obviously this is all driven by my own personal experience, but I really, really wanted to share that with you all here today. And yeah, as you'll see on the screen there, I've put a little hyperlink into my LinkedIn profile. Even as I said, I don't have a huge amount of experience and project experience, but the experience I have around learning, starting and getting into the space, coming from a completely different career, I think I've got some interesting ideas, and I love speaking to people. So, please reach out to me, and I'd be happy to, have a chat and see if there's anything I can help with. So let's dive into the topics that we're going to discuss today. So I've got what I wanted to do is, obviously, the main thrust of this session is behind people who are relatively new to the Power Platform and Dynamics 365 CE. And then hopefully also, if it's, maybe you've known it from a sort of end user perspective, but you want to get a little bit more detailed, perhaps you want to come into consultancy, just the different things and the ways you can structure yourself to be able to go about doing that. But what you see on the left-hand side of the screen, in that sort of rather fetching blue, these are the two topics that I want to cover in relation to us, the professionals, the learners, the whoever we want to call that. And then on another sort of, as I was doing my research for this session, and also as a big shout out actually to my MVP mentor, Jerry Weinstock. And, we had a session around, I had this idea of how I wanted this session to be, but I suppose I also needed some guidance from someone like Jerry, who's got years of experience. He's a business owner, something like a different perspective on perhaps what this session could bring. And I think one of those things, obviously, is that Jerry's one of those people who've brought in people into his business and has seen people go through that journey of arriving, knowing pretty much absolutely nothing, Googling everything every 5 seconds, and what that journey to becoming billable looks like. And at the end of the day, I'm sure we're all aware, no matter where we sit within the platform, of the shortage of talent, and what that's doing to salaries, and what that's doing to, at the end of the day, this platform is only going to grow and grow and grow. And we already are at a situation where there are more jobs than there are qualified professionals. And I genuinely feel that my journey from very much non-technical, very much no idea of dynamics whatsoever, probably up until August of 2019, I hadn't even heard of Microsoft Business Applications, to a point now where, although I don't have an exhaustive knowledge of the platform, I feel that I have a lot to give in terms of working with customers and finding interesting solutions to their problems, and perhaps also bringing a slightly different perspective to those problems compared to, say, perhaps someone who's come in through a more traditional professional services background, for example. So the four main areas I want to talk about, we're going to talk about the very beginning of your journey. If you're a learner, it's the sort of getting yourself out of the starting blocks, lots of getting up early, or whichever part of the day is best for you. But it's, as I said, all of these journeys start with a single step, and sometimes just getting on the horse or getting on the bike, that can sometimes be the hardest bit, and getting that momentum going. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And this is probably something I found one of the hardest aspects of the journey for me, was the short term versus the long term. So at the very, very beginning, when it's just a case of throwing energy and enthusiasm at the problem, it's a relatively simple equation. You put in a load of effort and you get a bit out. But the transition from being the sort of, and I think we all should be learn it all consultants, but that transition from sort of almost awkward teenager into knowledgeable professional is very, very important. Sorry, I appear to have clicked onto the next slide inadvertently, so please forget that you've just seen this slide, and let's move back one. So that's the short term versus the long term. Then I want to get into potentially a contentious hot topic, but just talk about, and this is really come from the insights from Jerry around, what this journey can bring to helping partners or end users. And I think actually there's very, very different sort of order of priorities for those two types of businesses. But for me, it's this thing of giving the newbies a chance. Just because you have 7 years of project experience, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are going to be perfect for that job if you're not doing your best to stay up to date with the platform. If you simply aren't a good consultant, experience doesn't automatically translate to quality. I think perhaps what it can do is equate to the sort of a higher lowest level of quality, so it's just like, so if someone's done this maybe 5 times, then it's probably not going to be absolutely disastrous. But I think with the talent shortage that there is in the marketplace, it's about obviously bringing people in from other work spheres. And with the pandemic, obviously there is a lot of people who are at the moment displaced work-wise, and so how potentially as a community as well, I think it's all on us. And I personally, coming from outside of IT to begin with, outside of even a sort of professional services environment, was welcomed in with open arms. And it was like, yeah, it's cool, come on in, we've you're learning, that's fine, let's help you get there. And so we've got this amazing community spirit and helping people and giving them that chance. But of course we do often hear it's employers giving people that first chance, and why you should give that person a first chance as opposed to this person. Okay, well, this person's been involved in one project, so I should give it to them. And I just want to sort of explore that a little bit. And then finally, and I really can't say I've in my first position as a consultant within Dynamics 365 and the Power Platform. I was very, very lucky to start in an organization where learning was really very much encouraged. And of course, it's one of those things, it's very, very difficult to stay up to date with a platform that is constantly evolving and changing. And the ways in which that we customize and the way in which we make a platform as or sort of a process and bring all of these things together for a customer has changed dramatically over the last 6-7 years. Yeah, we're not sitting there writing C# plugins and JavaScript all the time. Yeah, we've got these quick win tools. Now, I don't mean quick win in terms of a sort of a pithy thing. We can really provide rapid return on investment for customers. I can quite happily take on a requirement for building a certain form type with the customer in the workshop and build it and show it to them and be like, right, this is what it looks like. What do you think? Okay, so you want to hide this field when this happens. Okay, well, I've done it. Great. You know, we are able to do that. And it's that, so we have to find ways in which we're finding that value in different ways now. And so I really wanted to cover the sort of encourage learning in your organization and how that, to me, it doesn't just mean giving, so if you're a partner or if you're an end user, it doesn't simply mean buying your employees an exam voucher. There needs to be that sort of next step. Instead of we need to have so many PL 200s in our organization for us to pass this, pass partner competency. So that's a little bit about what we're going to be talking about. So let's dive into, probably you could argue it's the most exciting part of the journey, getting out of the blocks. So you'll see there on the right hand side a lovingly prepared graphic, but what I wanted to do here is draw together perhaps the sort of the main 4 stages that I experienced personally of kind of getting a first exposure to the platform, being really, really curious, sort of getting that high level sort of bird's eye view of the Microsoft Biz App space, then moving into taking a trial out, taking more sort of, the associate level exams and kind of getting a little bit more deeper detailed into the platform, but also realizing, oh, okay, I've got quite a lot to learn, actually. I'm very excited, but I've got a lot to learn. And then the next stage, okay, so I've got quite a lot to learn, quite a lot of detail to get. How do I get that detail? Where do I go for that detail? And is it just on Microsoft Learn? Is it here? Is it, that really is sort of where perhaps the novelty of your journey might have worn off, but it's time to sort of sharpen up your study, the way that you study and how that you study. And then finally, number 4, and this is an area that really came into me at, really at the start of my time, or my first job in consultancy, where I had a sort of a reasonable grasp of the capabilities of Dynamics 365 CE and the Power Platform, especially for that time. I was probably coming into consultancy with, fairly up-to-date knowledge. So the technical side of things and being able to take on a customer requirement and say whether it was, fit gap analyses and all that sort of stuff, wasn't really so much the issue, but understanding how you're actually going to implement this product for a customer, how that project lifecycle looks for a customer. And, I would suggest probably these days, 8 times out of 10, you're going to be working in a sort of an iterative design philosophy. And you're going to have to understand how you fit in to a Scrum team. And then you have the sort of the sort of agile principles that you have to adhere to and you have to be aware of, because you see people stray away from them and it usually means trouble. But also depending on what kind of business you're working with, what kind of business you are, will very much dictate how your Scrum team works or different bits that are most important to you. So let's go into these in a little bit more detail. So number 1, Okay, we're going to say embrace your curiosity. So at the bottom of this sort of pyramid Christmas tree kind of thing, I get asked a lot, Sam, where do you go for your learning? How did you learn the platform? Where I just can't get my head around it. Where do you go? And it's so when my very first sort of foray into learning about Dynamics, we still had the Dynamics Learning Portal. If any of you on this sessions remember those days, you will appreciate how lucky we are to have Microsoft Learn. But I really, really do think it's very much as simple as that is a really, really the best starting point. Okay, we've got a fantastic new set of role-based certifications. I say new, they've been around a while, but for a lot of people who've even been in Dynamics for a long time, they're still sort of getting to grips of what the role-based certifications are. But in terms of learning this platform from absolutely nothing, absolutely zilch, then I heartily recommend that you get stuck into the fundamentals. Yeah, take your Dynamics 365 fundamentals, especially now that it's been split into those two different work streams. So you've got your F&O and your ERP side, and you've got your sort of CE side of things as well. But preferably, I would just say take both. Yeah, getting an idea of how all the different modules fit together. And if you're anything like me, when I first heard of Dynamics, and I bought a book called Dynamics for Dummies. It's very informative read, but I just say actually sort of understanding the sort of the lineage of Dynamics and where different bits of it came from and how and why was very, very useful because, and as I'm sure many of you will have had calls from recruiters saying, so do you do Business Central Finance? No, I pretty much do customer service and sales, Dynamics 365 sales. Thanks. So, but don't be one of those people. Yeah. So learn how all the modules fit together. Then I would say as the next one, take your Power Platform fundamentals. It's not just the future. I think that there's been a huge amount of progress within the channel of sort of recognizing that whilst Dynamics 365 CE applications are important and you have to know how to implement them, it's actually more important to think of them as they are the first party applications that sit on top of the Power Platform. Yeah, the Power Platform isn't just this thing that sits to the side that we kind of dip in and out of every now and then. It's a real fundamental building block. So understanding the different products and capabilities in the Power Platform as well. And yeah, then look at some of the other, I've sat quite a few of the different fundamentals exams. And again, when you're starting from absolutely nothing, finding out what Azure is, what cloud computing is, what different databases are, if you want to go into do your Azure Data Fundamentals exam, take the AI Fundamentals exam. It's great fun working out what a sort of a text analytics service performs. It will give you that context to how the platform knits together, instead of just being this kind of laser focused on one stream of kind of like, right, I've got my Dynamics 365 fundamentals, I've got my PL200, and I'm now going to take a couple of Dynamics 365 first party associate exams. I've got my sales, got my customer service, I'm done. It's like it's so often you wouldn't believe, I think sometimes, that we'll go into Dynamics and we'll start doing some ridiculous customization because sometimes we don't even know what some of the applications in M365 can do. So Microsoft Bookings, the other day I'm thinking about a requirement for a customer, and I was thinking about all these incredible different custom entities doing all this like stuff, and then my colleague said, oh yeah, Microsoft Bookings, that would be really good, we can do that. Oh yeah. So it's sometimes you do need to really pick your head up from the sort of like the minutiae of the detail of the platform that we work in, which is awesome. I love it. But having that awareness of how the rest of the platform stitches together is really, really important. So I would suggest in this first stage, Microsoft Learn, 30 minutes a day, little and often, take 2 weeks to study for each fundamentals exam. I would preferably say go for 3 or 4, get your sort of grounding, and then we get into the next stage, which gets a little bit more serious from a sort of learning and academic perspective. So this is where I would suggest you start getting a little bit more hands-on with the platform. So by all means, if you feel like going to trials.dynamics.com and spinning up a trial and already when you're in your in the fundamental stage, great. Personally, I would say just spend your time getting that overview, understand the capabilities. Then when you're looking at your PL200, which is the sort of the core of the Power Platform and Dynamics 365 CE, was MB200, then that's where you really do need to start getting hands-on. And there's only one way to do that. And I personally hate it when people say, yeah, but I'm in my company's sandbox, like it's fine, like I can sort of play around. And no, you need to take out your own trial. Yeah, you need to go through what it's like to assign licenses, what the M365 admin center looks like for a global admin, what it looks like assigning security roles, and all of this sort of stuff, because a lot of the tasks that you will perform as a sort of global administrator or Dynamics 365 system admin will, even just the knowing which steps in the process you have to go to, you need to know what those steps are to pass these exams. So get your trial out. There's an amazing video by Chris Huntingford on this subject, and it's what I do every single time. So I use up my trial period, and then I'll take out another one and move my solutions over and sort of so I can tinker and all that sort of stuff. Having taken on this stage, and I would say again, with your trials and learn together, that will be enough to get a pass at an associate level. I would say this is again a stage where you want to take more time than you did for your fundamentals. So personally, I think if you're doing 30 minutes a day and smashing through your fundamentals, that really equates to about 2 weeks per fundamentals exam. When you're taking your first associate exam, I personally took about 2 months. And that was that was grabbing a lot of time, weekend study, all of that to sort of, because it's a much bigger subject, and sort of getting into, you've got no sort of kind of like building blocks, so especially if you're coming from a different profession. So when I thought back to, as an opera singer, how long it took me to learn a song in Italian when I was 21. So I didn't understand any Italian. I just kind of did a really bad sort of parrot impression of Italian, and it would take me a good real couple of weeks to get my head around a song. And but when I came to sort of 28, I could probably look at that sheet of music, maybe sort of 2 hours later, bash through it, then sort of get it on the voice, and then I'm pretty good to go, because I had that background, I had that sort of depth of experience and knowledge. It's going to be the same for you as starting out in this situation with Dynamics. You're not going to know what a business process flow is. You're not going to understand conditional branching in Power Automate. You're not going to understand how a Power BI, how Power Query works. There's all this stuff that it's going to feel like a lot at the beginning, but trust me, it's cumulative. Yeah, it will get better. It will get easier. And you obviously you have to keep embracing the curiosity and just the, oh goodness, I still don't know it all, because you never will. And that's possibly one of the most satisfying thing about this as a career, is that you will never know everything. There'll always be someone who knows more than you. But instead of getting annoyed about that, potentially, just be like, great, cool. So I don't know a lot. So personally, there are some elements of, so for example, solution deployment for me. It's still, I understand the sort of the theory of it, but when I'm like in the middle of a deployment and understanding the layering, I've still got loads to go. But there's, people that I've been working with who it's just second nature to them because they've been doing it for years. So understand that it's cumulative, and that getting detailed stage, be patient with yourself. Really, I would say give yourself, 2 months for your first, especially if you're sitting the PL 200, which is like the core, sort of that foundation level before you go and take one of the Dynamics first party application exams, like MB 220, MB 210, things like that. And the final stage for this getting out of the starting blocks, and this potentially bleeds into the short-term versus long-term argument, but having an understanding of project methodology. So you've got all the, let's take those first three bits of the pyramid as read. You've ticked all that. What are you going to then do with all this knowledge? You're just going to sit in front of a customer and recite Microsoft Docs. It's not going to be very useful. And you're not going to necessarily understand how iterative design works, what you really need to be actually contributing in sprint retrospectives. If you're in the functional team, as a Scrum Master, what's going to make you a good Scrum Master? Yeah, it's not good enough just to say, well, I'm the Scrum Master. I'm facilitating the sprint ceremonies. Yeah, you have to, there's got to be something else that you're bringing to the table. And, being useful on a project, and again, this will hopefully bleed into when we talk about bringing a consultant or a junior consultant from, learning and shadowing into being billable, useful on a project, and what that journey is. And this is really it. It's understanding where you fit into a project, where your strengths come to the fore and what you're offering. And, great resource for me, and I'm sure a lot of you are aware of it, is Neil Benson's Customary Academy. If Neil ever watches this, Neil, it's great learning material, and thank you for the email every week. Said a bit tongue in cheek, but in all seriousness, if you're coming from a sort of going through the sort of functional consultant journey, then learning's the path to be a certified Scrum Master. It's really, really useful, and understanding how a sprint cycle works is going to be absolutely invaluable to you. Whatever sort of actual sort of finite point of project methodology or delivery methodology, that you're, that you as an end user are employing, or that your preferred project methodology is as a partner, it's going to be a really useful backbone to you to understand that. So let's click into a little bit more about the short term to long term. And for me, this centers around going from something that can be, when you get into something new, that it's really exciting and it's like, yeah, I'm going to spend all the time I've got in the day, to something that's sustainable and is long term. And that's why I would really suggest that you just go, especially at the beginning, really just take those 30 minutes, little and often every day, and potentially repeating modules as well in Microsoft Learn. So we live in an age, I think, where there is so much information out there. There's too much information out there. And I'm very guilty of this, of getting mofo. So like that kind of like fear of missing out. No, FOMO, excuse me. Mofo is something completely different. FOMO, so yeah, fear of missing out. So you're just looking for that next thing. But as I said, when you're transferring from the very beginning of your career, and you're sort of going from just like having lots of sort of disparate knowledge and knitting it together into something that's cohesive, don't rush this transfer, because it's a very, very important part to get right. And you're going to have to be patient with yourself. The next point I wanted to cover was, looking beyond. So as I say, as we're transferring from short term to long term, I really think this is a point where, especially if you're learning this from a standing start, I'm going to assume you probably don't have an in-depth knowledge of different programming languages, different types of IT infrastructure, and just the broader landscape within which Microsoft Business applications sit. And again, if we draw this back to being useful on a project, being able to understand a customer's sort of network topology, or sort of the high level overview of how everything in their IT estate fits together, then you are going to be able to think about what types of integration are feasible, how long they're actually going to take. All these sort of things they're going to make you such a better consultant. Now, I've listed here into look into technologies such as HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and C#. But really, even if you want to start looking into different forms of data analysis, I think being aware of how you can augment the reporting capabilities of the Power Platform. Sorry, not Power Platform. Power BI is in the Power Platform, but looking at the amount of times I hear from people that the out of the box Dynamics 365 dashboards aren't doing what we want them to do. So, yeah, great. We'll embed a Power BI report for you. Okay, great. When can I speak to the BI team? Okay, yeah, I'll get that sorted. No, hang on. Actually, I can have a look at this and I understand the entity structure in Dynamics really well, and I can put something together and show you. How about that? Yeah, that's you're making yourself so much more useful by having an understanding of other technologies beyond your little microcosm. Another aspect of this, and I think growing your network really could be something that you do a lot earlier on as well, but it's potentially something that as you've maybe gone through quite a lot of the material in Microsoft Learn, is now you can start looking at the different resources out there, and you'll actually be able to take them on because you have a base knowledge. And some of the stuff out there I've been learning a lot about Power BI, and writing DAX, and then thinking about writing different ways of writing Canvas apps, and how you can call different collections and all of that kind of stuff. Where yes, there is stuff on Microsoft Learn, but there's a lot of really cool functionality that won't be there. So, and there's literally this incredible universe of MVPs and other people contributing to the community and if you just you follow them on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on YouTube, there are so many useful resources. And I would just say, get out there, grow your network, follow the right people, and it really, really will pay dividends. The next aspect is don't fake it till you make it. So I think at this stage, it can be all too easy to have this try to pretend to your colleagues that no, I've done that. No, I absolutely understand. Yes, I'll just deploy, it'll be fine. No, don't do that. I've absolutely been guilty of that. And all you do is deny yourself a learning opportunity. And you also actually potentially might ruin a project. So just take all the help you can. Yeah, be humble. And if you don't know something, ask. And then from going through that process of asking, you're much more likely to learn it. And finally, I think this is something that, again, you've probably been spending the best part of a year getting your technical knowledge and a lot of things that are completely new to you, but don't rest on your laurels when it comes to your soft skills. The elements of speaking at community events. These are things that can really help you in terms of upping your presentation skills. I really would suggest that you search out opportunities to speak at events. First of all, because you're contributing to something that you're probably taking out of as well, because we all benefit from it. But from speaking at events, it's going to make you so much more engaging when you're speaking with customers. And it's for some people it comes very naturally, and for others it takes a bit of practice. So practice makes perfect. So get out there, sign up for events, be that eager beaver. It will pay dividends. Now, I have spent the lion's share of this session so far speaking about how you as a younger professional or someone earlier in their career or coming from a different background, whatever. But I really did want to touch on a little bit how employers can help in this, and actually why they need to help if they want the talent shortage, the talent gap to come down. So let's click into our next slide. So why you should give the newbies a chance. So, and again, I don't think this problem has existed for way back beyond the time that I started, into December of 2019. And there's this issue now where we actually have a lot of really good learning resources out there for people to go and take advantage of. They can go and spin up a trial environment. They can learn about how things fit together. But then for an employer to take that next step and place them on a project or shadow someone, it's like, right, so how long am I going to have to invest in this person not making me any money? It's actually costing me money. Now, I really do think that this point of getting to someone being billable, it's not this kind of one size fits all journey. And, there are partner programs out there that are really fantastic at giving people who have absolutely no experience a chance in the platform. But there is still, I think, this idea that hiring experienced and proven consultants is this guarantee of quality. And yes, I would say it's incredibly valuable. But if we sort of start thinking about how quickly this platform is evolving, for example, when you see Power Platform consultant experience required 8 years, it's like, okay, well, how does that marry up to what the platform looks like now? And how do you actually judge whether someone is capable of staying on top of the platform? How do you judge that they're the aptitude to do that? And actually, Microsoft Learn is fantastic. If someone was to come to me and say, I've passed all these exams, I don't work with the platform every day, but I've sat down and in my own time and I've studied to this degree, I'd be like, yeah, actually, that's showing some really top commitment. So this is, again, probably slightly beyond the remit of, I think we probably could speak about this for the entire day, about how we diversify the talent pool within Microsoft Biz Apps. I jokingly say, how are we going to attract talent outside of the usual talent streams? For example, opera singers. But in all seriousness, I think there is a really strong debate to be had where, obviously, with the events that are happening across the globe at the moment, there is a huge shift in where people are being employed. And there are a lot of skill sets and a lot of people out there who, they're not going to have any project experience. But does that mean that without one or two projects and without the right input, that they wouldn't be useful on a project? I would say, actually, they would be incredibly useful if you aren't lazy in how you hire, but actually measure someone's aptitude to get better. Don't think about what they're going to be, what they're going to be like as a consultant on day one, but actually pick a time period. So the Nigel Frank salary guide, goodness me. I think worldwide and sort of all survey respondents, there was an average of 6 years in sort of someone's tenure at a company. So if I hired a consultant and on day one, their skill set haven't changed over those 6 years by the time that they potentially leave after 6, I mean, that's not great, is it? They're not going to be up to date with the platform. They're not going to be offering customers the most innovative solutions. So why don't we then think about, instead of, right, what is this person going to be like for the first 6 months, is think about, okay, how do I best support them for those first 6 months? And then when we get into that time period from, maybe 8 months onwards, and then for the next few years after that, so they've done this kind of journey here, they've learnt this much, and they've got to this point where they're useful, they're coming up with great ideas, they understand how a project fits together, then you're getting all of this time afterwards where, yes, they're probably on a lower salary than someone that you hired with lots of experience there. And then you're getting all of this time where they do understand, they also understand exactly how you want to run a project. They're not necessarily coming in with their own preconceived notions and kind of, not like, no, this is how I do it. You often are going to find people that newbies coming in who are, malleable probably isn't the right word, but you understand what I'm trying to say. So I just wanted to touch on this as an area where I don't think, partners or end users can really sit there going, there's just no talent out there, there's no experience. If you're not going to take a step back and think about how these people get this experience, because otherwise we are going to end up at a point where, and I think I remember speaking to someone else in the industry a few months ago. It's like, we're probably going to end up hiring junior consultants with 6 months experience at £80,000 a year. Yeah. So whilst there are some people out there doing really good things, there's also people doing bad things. So let's move away from the short term and start looking more long term in terms of hiring. I'm gonna touch on now again. So let's assume that you've got these people into your organization, these new people, and also it counts for people who've been in the industry for a long time but need to stay up to date with the current exams. So I've cheekily just sort of snipped this from the Nigel Frank salary guide, but it's a very interesting. It gives me a very interesting metric, I feel, of like why people haven't undertaken certification. And obviously at the very top, that I don't feel I need to, would be sort of a cause for concern, because I think that's, shows a level of arrogance that would worry me. But the lack of support and the time commitment and the cost implications, so those sort of three in the sort of darker blue. Now, I understand that for a partner who has a burgeoning order book, it's going to be challenging to find time to set aside for your workforce to train up in the latest tech. But again, if we're looking at that 6-year journey, that average 6-year journey for a consultant, then you need them to be staying up to date. You need them to be staying on top of the technology. And that, to me, as I mentioned earlier, that doesn't involve giving them an exam voucher and just kind of going, yeah, great, sit that exam, do the learning material, great, so you're upskilled, great, off we go. Yeah, there has to be more to it than that. And the sort of I don't want to get into this kind of deep learning and development attitude. Oh, sorry, not attitude, but learning and development sort of, pros and cons of how it should be done. But actually making formal sort of study and self-improvement time a must for your consultants, and setting it aside and having it actually booked as proper meetings in someone's schedule. So it's not just something that's crammed in on the side, alongside, putting together, an RFP and an RFI, and then chairing a workshop, and then doing, writing up the workshop, and then, oh no, I've got to sit my MB 220 tomorrow. Oh, I need to do this. It needs to be quality time that's been set aside. And, one that it says right there, it's like one quick change that employers can make to help their workforce to upskill is to provide dedicated study time. And again, I think for a lot of people, and I understand for many partners, it's a huge thing that needs to be. It's a tick box exercise to a point to pass partner competencies. That's fine. We need to be proving to our customers that we have consultants that are able to implement this. That's fine. But at the same time, for the personal growth of a consultant and where they go, it's hugely important to give them that time to take that study. And as I say, the stress of managing, I mean, if you're in a busy practice with multiple projects on, then the stress of managing that and then asking them to sit an exam on the side, it's just, there needs to be more sort of long term. So as I said, for me, this isn't just a nice to have, sort of setting aside some study time. This really, really is essential, and it will really, really help make sure that you not, as we say, from that 6-year journey, that person that arrives on day one is unrecognizable from day, when they finish. So that is it from me. I should have a thank you slide, but I do not. So I'm going to rather unprofessionally sign off from that point and say, I hope you all have a wonderful time at the rest of the Scottish Summit. It's been an absolute pleasure sharing my thoughts and ramblings with you. As I said at the beginning, if you want to hit me up on LinkedIn, then please do. I'd love to hear from you all. And if you've got any questions on any of the things I've said, then I hope to see you in one of the other sessions. And as I say, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you to Mark and Ian for having me to present. And I hope to be back with you very soon. Bye.